The service in Raleigh. It's Nick Petro with your tropical storm Nicole briefing and your weekly briefing for Central North Carolina. Today is Thursday, the 10th of November. It's 11:30. And what's changed since our last briefing slide? Well, we've added a little bit more information, namely radar simulations to give you a sense for timing. We've made a few adjustments to the wind gusts potential, but all in all, not a whole lot has changed since we talked yesterday. Remember, we had a 4:30 webinar yesterday. Not a whole lot has changed, and you can see that obviously we'll be updating these slides and sending them out throughout the day. But we'll have, after this webinar, we'll have one final live briefing webinar for this particular Nicole storm event, and that'll be 11:30 tomorrow. Kind of just to give you a sense for how it's all unfolding. So that's what we've got right now. Quick look at the current conditions, and you can see. Well, let's zoom in here to Florida, and let me turn off the meso overlays. Here you can see that there is the current location of Nicole, and once everything loads in here and the graphics load, and sorry about the brief delay there as everything loads up, but you can see there, looks like the center of Nicole has emerged off the northwest coast there of the peninsula. And as I zoom out a little bit, you can see the rain bands, even some very light rain bands, the outermost bands, looks like they're trying to sneak up there on the extreme southeast coast of North Carolina, Cape Fear region. And you can see there the first real decent rain band is still down near Charlotte. Not Charlotte, what am I saying here? Charleston. Sorry about that. Down there, Charleston. So anyway, currently, here's the current dew points, which basically, in a basic sense, is a measure of moisture. And you can see how the dew points fall back into the mid and upper 40s as you get across the western Piedmont. So, and higher dew points along the coast. That's thanks to onshore flow and basically helping to have the higher moisture there along the coast. That moisture will be increasing westward with time, and things will be moistening up to the point where some rain will eventually get underway later today, tonight, even as far back as the Piedmont, western Piedmont. So anyway, as I zoom out here and sort of show you what some of the other weather players are, there is a what I've got here are basically the middle of the atmosphere kind of pressure lines, and the arrows represent the flow. And these are kind of the steering flow. And so clearly we have Nicole and Nicole's features there over Florida. And you can see the clouds in the background and the arrows basically depicting how those clouds are going to basically continuing to thicken and overspread from east to west across the Carolinas. The other feature I'm kind of watching is that big trough out in the western US, because this big trough right here with the trough axis, and notice how these arrows are kind of southwest to northeast, and that trough is going to, the whole system's going to move eastward. And as you can imagine, that's what will, with time, when that trough gets to be sort of about here, you know, obviously it's going to begin to pick up Nicole and steer that circulation northward. So that's the big player. But let's pretend for a minute that Nicole wasn't even here. Okay, let's just pretend it wasn't there. This trough is going to deliver, would deliver, even in the absence of Nicole, you know, a chance for rain late tomorrow, and we would have a sort of a little potent front come through with maybe some thunderstorms. So anyway, that's we've got these two big players here merging basically over the southern Appalachians and Carolinas, and you'll see how this will sort of evolve and modulate everything here as we head into the daytime tomorrow. So anyway, we'd be having interesting weather even if it wasn't, even if Nicole wasn't around because of that trough. In case you're wondering, here is the latest display of current weather watches, warnings, and advisories. And you can see nothing over central North Carolina in terms of watches, warnings, or advisories. Out toward the west over the mountains, there is a flood watch, and clearly that's where the heaviest rain and greatest risk for flash flooding will occur. These brown shades indicate wind advisories, again, background winds with Nicole, but the background winds with Nicole are not expected to get sort of this far north. And other than that, the tropical watches or tropical warnings and such are further south where you see these reds here. So anyway, that's the current watch warning advisory situation. Let me go back to the slides. And if I can get back to the right panel, there we go. And here's the latest from the Hurricane Center, the track. And again, remember the white cone just represents the center, the possibility of where the center may track. And as you know, and we kind of mention this over and over again with every tropical cyclone, don't focus on the cone because impacts, weather hazards can occur and do occur, usually occur well away from where you see that cone. So don't let the cone mislead you. All right, now in terms of getting to the bottom line here of what we expect in terms of hazards and impacts, basically three main things we're looking at. And the biggest concern, of course, is scattered tornadoes and the localized pockets of intense wind damage that may result in. And we're thinking that there will be an opportunity, particularly across the southeast part of North Carolina later tonight and anywhere across central North Carolina during the daytime tomorrow. But when I show you the radar simulations, you'll see I think the best chance for any sort of tornado activity across central North Carolina will probably be with a band of showers and thunderstorms tomorrow morning, particularly around anywhere from basically the morning commute time through maybe as late as the early afternoon. So think about your travels and where you're going to be tomorrow morning, because you want to make sure, number one, when you get to wherever you're going to be tomorrow morning, look around and see where's the best place to seek shelter. Where's a storm shelter, good shelter, interior room, lowest floor, away from windows, wherever it is you're going to be, home, work, school, whatever the case may be, just in case there is one of these very brief, isolated spin-up tornadoes that occur. And also keep an eye, check the weather in the morning, see if you could maybe leave early or leave a little later, depending on thunderstorm activity, as it more than likely affect your morning commute. So anyway, and then later in the day, moving down to the second row of this table, later in the day, basically we're gonna move sort of away from the tornado scenario, more to a straight line wind scenario, where a narrow line of showers and thunderstorms and we'll be moving across, basically across the state. Now, again, that's more kind of related, if you will, of that trough kind of interacting with Nicole and helping to kind of change the structure, if you will, becomes almost more like a ordinary cool season low type system with a decent cold front or prefrontal trough. But basically, the bottom line is there could be a narrow line of showers and thunderstorms that move across the area that could have some 40 to 45 mile per hour wind gusts. And that could be anywhere across central North Carolina, but especially south and east of the Triad. Looks like the winds will, the further east you go, the better the chance for those, very brief straight line wind gusts. And again, anytime during the daytime Friday, but especially late in the day Friday, with that final band of showers and thunderstorms that's going to move through. So again, we're looking at a late afternoon into the early evening event for those line of storms with those gusts. Finally, how much rain? Well, we've been tweaking the rain down the last couple days. We've been trending down with the rainfall. Again, the worst of the rain is going to be to our west, and that's where the greatest risk for flash flooding will be. But again, we'll have to watch those bands that move through, because if it puts down a ½ inch or even 3/4 of an inch of rain in a very short period of time, yeah, that could result in some poor drainage flooding. The typical spots that collect water when rain comes down really hard. So we don't want to completely rule out any risk for localized flooding. But again, it looks like the best risk for more numerous flash flooding will be from the areas from the Triad westward. Again, that's any time from later tonight through Friday evening. All right, and this is another way of looking at it. This graphic, just if you just take a 3-second look at this graphic, it'll tell you that tornadoes and wind are two main concerns. And look what's lowest, river flooding. There's basically no concern with river flooding because rainfall amounts across central North Carolina will be so light. Speaking of that rain, another way of looking at it, basically, much of Much of North Carolina, say from Raleigh eastward, will see less than an inch of rain. But once you get west of Raleigh and south of Raleigh, that's where you might get the inch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half rainfall amounts. But look where you see the yellows and oranges and reds. That's where we're going to have the 1.5 plus, maybe 2 inch, maybe 3 inch rain amounts up along the higher terrain. The escarpment, if you're, for anybody out in the just east of Asheville, or even in Asheville, in places like between Hickory and Asheville, where the terrain suddenly makes a big increase. That area could see some pretty decent flash flooding with the complex terrain in conjunction with the higher rainfall amounts. But for us, again, we're just going to generally say 1 to 2 inches of rain for central North Carolina, highest west. And again, another way of looking at where we think the best risk for flash flooding will be, and it says Thursday and Friday, but that's mainly, obviously today's Thursday, so we're looking more like tonight and Friday. Green shows where there's a marginal risk, and yellow shows where there's an even higher risk. And again, that's mainly west of central North Carolina, but certainly from the Triad westward. River flooding is not expected with this storm system on the main stem rivers across central North Carolina. So there you have it, one sentence to summarize that concern. All right, in terms of, let's look again at the tornado threat here. This generally shows aerial extent of where we think the greatest risk for tornadoes will be. And remember, you see that area for tonight, yellow and green. That's mainly late tonight, certainly after sunset, but more than likely even after midnight. When a more intense band begins to move up from the south, that band will be affecting much of central North Carolina during the morning, late morning hours tomorrow. So that's why the yellow you see there indicating a higher risk is consuming more of central and eastern North Carolina. All right, so in terms of looking at the simulated radar for tonight through Friday, basically to give you a sense of timing, don't necessarily use this as a sense of intensity. I wouldn't want people to look and see where the reds are and say, oh my gosh, there's going to be a really nasty storm exactly underneath the red. That's not why we provide these. We provide these for a sense of timing, because you never want to take these verbatim, because obviously no model can really nail down exactly where a storm's going to be. It can give you a pretty good idea. This is mainly for timing. Okay, so basically we start to see the bands increasing in coverage overnight tonight. But look at we see a little bit more consolidation of thunderstorm activity in a band that moves, or at least begins to move up across basically from southwest to northeast, or maybe from west to east across central North Carolina during the morning hours. I'm highlighting 7 a.m. through 11 a.m. Look at this band, and I'm going to highlight it here with my highlighter, and then notice how that same band shifts east during the late morning hours. It's with this band right here that we think any like low topped spinning thunderstorms could result in a very brief, quick hitting, not long lasting type tornado. Typically when tornadoes that are associated with tropical cyclones generally are the type that develop so fast they don't last very long. And because of the nature of that, they don't offer us a lot of time for warning and lead time. So oftentimes these types of tornadoes come with not a whole lot of lead time. We try to give you as much as possible. So that's why I say when you arrive at wherever you're going to be tomorrow morning, you want to scope out a place where you can seek shelter. Because if you do get a tornado warning, then chances are there's not going to be a whole lot of time to get to a shelter. So make sure you know ahead of time where that's going to be. Again, I don't think these are going to be prolific. I think they're going to be more isolated. And generally on the scale of intensity, tropical cyclone tornadoes tend to be on the lower end of intensity scale. But again, just know that there's a concern for that, particularly tomorrow morning from about the morning commute through about noontime or so. There's indications now that we could get a break in some of the action during the mid-afternoon on Friday. I'm looking at the lower left panel. And while that may seem good at first, what that could result in is maybe a few peaks of sunshine and some additional heating that could sort of intensify or at least give some fuel to that last band of storms that we expect coming through late in the afternoon and evening. So, could get a little gusty, even outside of thunderstorms, maybe those 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts I mentioned earlier, that could happen during the daytime in conjunction with just the sunshine and not even precipitation. There could be a few wind gusts around. But you'll notice on those reflectivity simulations on the bottom row, look at how things kind of come together in one last shot of rain, one last band, if you will, that moves across central North Carolina, basically as early as 3 p.m. across the Triad. The Triangle region will be sort of in the early evening, and then everything's sweeping into eastern North Carolina and eventually off the coast tomorrow, late evening and night. And while I don't expect, widespread wind damage, I think this could be more like sort of almost like a straight line, squall line thunderstorm type event, where you get an isolated pocket of wind that produces, maybe a 45, maybe a 50 mile per hour wind gust in the most intense. So that's why we think there is a risk for some down trees and subsequent power outages late in the day tomorrow with this final band that sweeps across. Now, since yesterday, the models have maybe trended a bit weaker with that threat, but it's still there. So I don't want to rule it out, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed that maybe the trend continues a little bit weaker, but it's still there. So so I don't want to discount that possibility, and I want everybody to be aware that there could be a late afternoon, late day, early evening, however you want to describe it, but later in the day, band of showers and storms that move through that could give us some wind gusts, above 40 miles per hour, let's say. All right, and of course, this slide will be included with the in the email package that I send out. All right, so let's summarize what we expect with Tropical Storm Nicole and the takeaways here. Our confidence is fairly high. I mean, models have been pretty consistent. Again, we're concerned, number one, about that tornado threat. That'll be mainly south and east of the Triangle late tonight, and then anywhere across central North Carolina Friday. And we'll say through Friday evening, but really I think the most likely time that we're going to see such tornadoes will be during the morning hours into the early afternoon. I think that's the best timing. Now, in terms of winds outside of thunderstorms or outside of rain even, the background wind, so to speak, maybe 20, maybe gusts to 30 can't be ruled out, but particularly in the afternoon when the sun comes out. And then again, a few isolated higher gusts of 40 to 45 associated with late day thunderstorms on Friday. And especially south and east of the Triad, where, it will probably be warmer and more unstable. So, not to say the Triad can't see a wind gust of that nature, but I think the best chance is actually as you go further east into the warmer air. So anyway, be on guard for that too. And again, don't be surprised if some trees come down, which obviously can block some roads, hamper travel, but as well result in some localized power outages. Finally, the rainfall. The worst of the rain is going to be west of central North Carolina, out towards the foothills and mountains. But again, we're going to just generally say 1 to 2 inches of rain. And again, when it comes down hard, if you get a ½ inch of rain in 20 minutes with one of these heavier bands or heavier cells, yeah, that's going to cause water to collect. The drainage systems just can't carry it away that fast when that much rain falls, even in a short period of time. So again, we don't want to discount the possibility of some localized poor drainage, maybe some urban flooding. But again, the highest risk for any more widespread type flash flooding will be to our west. Let me, because it is Thursday, and normally on Thursday, we're looking further down the road in terms of what to expect for the rest of the week and weekend. I want to point out, so I did include some slides here for the traditional weekly briefing type information. Looks like Saturday's in pretty good shape. We'll have some decent weather, although a cooling trend late in the day behind a front. But I think weather-wise, we should be mostly dry or completely dry on Saturday. High pressure will build in behind that front for Sunday through the middle of next week. There is a hint that a weather system could skirt the southeast on maybe on Tuesday. We'll see about that. So that might be our next chance for some rain would be maybe during the late No, not late. What am I saying here? Sort of the early middle part of next week, maybe Tuesday. We'll see about that. We'll give you more details as we head in through the weekend. Definitely check us out at weather.gov/Raleigh if you have plans for early next week. But this is not going to be a big deal. What we do see early next week, it's just a passing, fleeting type weather system swinging by to our south. But I will point out that by Sunday, even before that event on Tuesday, on Sunday we're going to have some pretty chilly air mass arriving, and we're going to be seeing low temperatures, touching freezing in some spots by Sunday night. So in terms of once we get past Nicole related rain, look at Saturday dry, look at Sunday dry, look at Monday dry. But look at on Monday, on the Monday panel, see the greens there over Georgia and Alabama and points west. That's going to be our rain for Tuesday. So these graphics just don't go out that far, but basically that'll be that southern system that's scooting across the southeast. Again, not a huge deal, not much in the way of hazards or impacts. So here's as we look further down the road, 8 to 14 days. Notice a pretty potent cooling trend, and the opportunity for precip will be pretty decent as well. And just quickly at a glance, the reason I wanted to put this up on the screen is because notice, obviously, we're all well aware of what's going to happen tomorrow in the next 36 hours or so with Nicole. But look at here, these low temperatures approaching or even touching, or in some cases, a typical colder spots going below freezing Sunday night. So we're going to be back into a cooler type pattern as we get into Sunday, and notice those high temperatures on Sunday struggling to get to the mid 50s. So that'll be the main weather story. Look at that, 51 on Monday. So pretty chilly. Get out the jackets. You're going to need them, especially the warm jackets too, as we get into the late weekend into early next week. So anyway, let's back up a few slides so you can see when our next briefings will be. And our next briefings, I'm going to send this slide package out here as soon as we disconnect. These slides I'm showing, you'll have those in your inbox or on our webpage at weather.gov/Raleigh for those who aren't on our email list. They're right there at the top of the page, easy to find. And then our next live weather briefing, like we're doing now, we're going to do another one tomorrow at 11:30, same time, same place, same links. If you're already registered, you'll get a link to join in your email about an hour before. And that'll be our final live briefing for this event, for the Nicole event tomorrow at 11:30, and we'll just touch base on the threats for the rest of the day. So with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining us.